Well, good evening, everybody out there on YouTube again. I'm Sparky Mike. Welcome to the Ol'skool Reefer channel. Well, I get a bunch of questions and comments lately. People wanting to get back into the hobby, or beginners that have never been in the hobby, or how to go about starting up a tank. It's not a rich man's hobby, though it can be. The handier you are, the cheaper it'll be. So, and another thing they asked me too is, well, isn't it hard? Isn't it a pain in the butt? Isn't it a bunch of work? And I would have to say, and isn't it really expensive? And I'd have to say no, 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 and no. Simply because, well, I'll divulge straight up, I'm a construction worker, and in Denver that's real seasonal. So take it from there. You can make $10,000 a year, or you can bust butt and make $100,000 a year if you're a boss. So then you get tired of doing that, and then you want to do your own thing and just work in the corner and get paid. So then you start doing your own business, work for who you want, when you want, where you want, and so on and so forth. So I'll go on to detail with keeping fish. The hard part. Is it hard? Okay. It is a daily thing. It's pay attention, observation. Come by the tank, look at it in the morning, look at it in the afternoon, look at it in the evening. If you notice something or hear something, like the plugged up filter that I have to change tonight, making a little extra noise, I know immediately to change a filter. So yes, it is a little bit of work. It's like having any kind of animal, a dog or a cat, and you got a cat box. Well, you got to clean that cat box daily, preferred, so it doesn't stink and you don't have a mess and you don't have no smell. Same with a dog. Got to shovel the dog shit in the backyard once in a while. Got to feed the dog, got to water the dog, got to bathe the dog. So I guess the point is, how much do you have going on in your life? If you got kids and a circus going on, well, keeping fish may not be for you. If your life lacks a hobby or something to do in the meantime on a daily basis, and you have the time to do it, which is pay attention, part of the observation thing, then I would say it might be for you. If you want to get back into it, or you think it's difficult, it's really not. You just got to follow some basics. And I guess I'll get into that. So as far as keeping a tank, is it hard? Okay. Well, no harder than keeping cats, an animal. If you care about animals, you want to keep them alive and as best and happy as possible. Don't totally overcrowd a tank. Don't put them in a tank too small. Don't buy a tank that's too small and load it up full of too many fish. Though I have seen systems, professional systems, that are just loaded to the gill and they work just fine. And that's for a professional. You got to remember, this fish lives in a box. So the box is his entire world. Now imagine you living in a box. How big a box do you want to live in? And poop in. Therefore clean the gravel, just like cleaning a cat box. Except with fish, you don't want to do it all at one time. You don't want to dump all the water out and dump all the gravel out and scrub it, because there's a thing in there, even inside our own bodies, called bacteria. And the bacteria breaks down the waste into things that aren't harmful to the fish, as well as it breaks down food in our systems. It's an invisible thing. It lives in the water. So that's a basic. You can't see it, but you need it. So my suggestions are no more than 25% of the water once a month or at any given time. Maybe every 2 weeks if you want to keep it pristine. I know this tank isn't totally pristine, but green growing tanks aren't pristine. So it is a cat box. So clean the gravel at least every couple weeks, at least once a month, and vacuum the gravel out. If you clean the glass, clean it one day and then vacuum out the gravel maybe the next day or the day after. Don't do it all in one shot, is kind of my tip. No more than 25% of the water, and don't go scrubbing the whole tank out in one shot. You want to scrub the plants, scrub the plants. You want to vacuum the gravel the next day, vacuum the gravel. You want to clean the glass, do it the following day after that, but don't do it all in one shot, because you just kind of disturb the tank too much, and gradually is better as far as the fish world. The more gradual you can do it, the better off you'll be. You won't stress the fish, and that's a whole nother thing about getting sick and parasites and all that. Well-fed fish, just like yourself, if you're well-fed, you won't get sick. If you don't get sick, there's no problems. You don't end up in the hospital, etc., etc. A little garlic in their diet doesn't hurt. Every once in a while, keeps the immune system up. Same with humans. Keeps the bugs off you too. So, as well as fish. Keep them happy, healthy. Don't stress them, and don't stress the bacteria that lives in the gravel. I believe a little tighter, finer gravel on the bottom traps the detritus a little better and doesn't allow it to get into what I call an under gravel filter, which is underneath the gravel, and I'll get into that in a minute. Simple tank setup. Lots of air. As much air as you can possibly get into it. All my tanks are piped with outside air. Pressurized through pumps, fed to every tank in the house. I even have holes drilled in the floor to get air up here. Outside fresh air. As well as having cracked open windows 24/7 at some point. Sorry. More fresh air you can get in your house, even if you have to pay an extra $5 a month to heat the outside. Keep fresh air in your house. Summertime, I use a swamp cooler instead of central air conditioning, etc., etc. Lots of air, every tank. Almost to the point, in fact, I have to turn the air up on this one from downstairs. Almost to the point where you put bubbles on his slime coat. You don't want bubbles on his slime coat. You don't want to make him mad, and that's too much air. So as much air as you can get in the water. Keeps the pH up. Just simple things. Okay, so we'll proceed with the tour tonight. So how much trouble is it? As far as keeping a cat, probably equal to, you gotta feed them every night. Gotta clean their cat box. Keep them well fed every night, kind of on a schedule. Look them over morning, noon, and night. And what can I say? It isn't that difficult. And be into cleaning a little glass once, twice a week. Get a good magnet, make your life easier. Gently scrape the glass. Don't get to any super extremes. I don't. Except maybe once a month I'll get in here with a razor blade and reach around and get the edges and clean the glass a little better. But you don't have to get to any extreme. You're busy watching the fish, not the edges of the glass. Reach in once in a while, disturb the gravel along the edge. You don't have to get too crazy. If you get too crazy, you end up scratching the glass. Along the bottoms especially. The cleaner gets into the gravel gets into the glass, you scratch the glass. The scratches are there forever. Unless you have a plexiglass tank, acrylic tank. Then you have to dump all the fish out and polish the scratches out. I prefer glass over plexiglass, acrylic any day. Just don't scratch the glass. once you've mastered, I believe, once you've mastered or even had a freshwater tank for a while, then you can evolve to saltwater tanks. Once you've mastered a smaller tank, you can evolve to giant tanks, as much as you want to take care of. Believe me, 6, 7 tanks and 500 gallons almost total are now something 400-gallon reef system. It takes a couple minutes to clean the glass and pay attention, come by and just admire what you've done, what you got, who's doing what to who might be stinging who doesn't play well with who. And again, my tanks aren't perfect. You can see some algae around the edges. Do it quick, do it fast, make it easy. Don't go clear down to the bottom, scratch the glass. Everybody else is busy looking at everything else and not the edges anyway, so don't be a perfectionist. But the scratches are there forever. So take your time when you're doing edges. Okay, advanced tanks, you get into sumps. All the water goes through a drain box, ends up in somewhere down below, and you use a pump to pump it back up. More advanced systems. Simple systems. Start with an under gravel filter or a hang on the back type sponge filter, similar to the filter I need to clean tonight that was on the fresh water just a second ago. The kitchen has come along. I still have some upper cabinets to make, but nice tile floor and some light effects. The pandemic came along and the price of wood went up to $93 or something a sheet, so it's on hold for a minute. Sorry to distract from that. So how hard is it? If you can keep a dog happy and then deal with a handicapped dog when they get old, you probably have the patience to deal with a fish tank. I did a little re-landscaping earlier. So I'll go on with the discussion. Try not to draw this out too long. Once you've mastered the freshwater, you can progress, I believe. I wouldn't jump in over your head too quick. Start out with a sacrificial fish, whether it be freshwater or saltwater. You start out with a bare tank. You can do it for under $100. Put a beta in there and start from there. 4 weeks later, you have enough of that invisible bacteria to progress. A damsel in salt water, same way. Rainbow gonopora. With hosting clownfish. So it really isn't that hard. It's just a little bit of maintenance. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure it out. You know, I have not actually performed a test on this tank in probably a year and a half. And I've had 2 little bouts of ick that have come and gone from adding new shrimp, hermit crabs. It just comes in the water. If your critters are susceptible, especially tangs, like the yellow tangs, they'll break out in a little bit of ick. No reason to panic, just keep feeding them. Hopefully they don't quit eating. Adding a little bit of garlic to their food. Seaweed with garlic, also known as nori, does wonders for keeping everybody healthy and happy, and within a week they pretty much shed all the parasites and everybody's back to normal. So no need to panic. if anybody breaks out with ick. Velvet's another deal, but it's kind of rare, at least in my experience. Now, this is an advanced system. This is, by now it's $2,300 for the glass tank for this one. The rest of the system, like I said, if you're handy, you can build it all yourself. This is actually spanned over a stairwell to my basement. So I've expanded to probably $10,000 in fish keeping by now. So this is my man cave office, per se, if you haven't already seen my videos. Enemy jail. So we'll go on. How to begin? Where to begin? Okay. Well, if you're a beginner, I would say start with a tank. Bigger than you think you need. Because you're always going to want to add something else, and something else, and something else. And usually the habit is, or the hobby is habit forming, per se. So we spot any shrimp tonight. So I would say start with something probably like this 10-15 gallon tank. Pick them up about anywhere. $10 if you're handy, 20 somewhere, 50 at the most. And then if you're handy, of course you can build tops and stands for them and whatever else, but you start with a bare tank. Pick out a tank you want. My beta was my sacrificial fish. Per se, to start the tank. You start with something to put in the bottom, or a filter, or both. I prefer both. I don't know if you can even get them anymore, but this would be an under gravel filter, under tow filter, under flow filter. Put those underneath the gravel on the bottom of the tank. Like I said, I like a little bit finer grade substrate on the bottom, so over the under gravel filter, either air or some form of power head to draw water up through. And like I said, as much air as you can get without disturbing or pissing the fish off. A decent heater. If you buy a good submersible heater, you can use it in freshwater or saltwater, as well as the power heads. Power heads should have a ceramic or stainless steel, marine grade stainless steel shafts in them so they don't rust. Power filter, cheap power filters, $20-$30. You're probably talking $100 invested to get started in a decent little freshwater setup and or saltwater. This here is an island, not island tank, but a rimless tank, 15 gallon or something, flat bottom, so I built the stand and all. So a couple $100 by now, $300-$400, not even that probably, if you were to buy it outright. Me hand making it, it was a bunch of 2x4, couple 2x4s, little plywood. There you go. Light shouldn't cost you more than $15. If you're handy, it'll cost you a couple bucks. Voila! You have a fish tank. You've had your beta for 30 days. You take your water down to the fish store and you ask them to test it. Then you bring home new occupants. Don't overfeed them for at least the first couple days. Feed them maybe once, twice a day, very little, and then gradually increase the food as you see fit. Do not leave waste food on the bottom. If you do, make sure you have some bottom feeders. Bottom feeders do wonders. Hermit crabs, shrimp, gobies, diamond gobies. In freshwater you have loaches. Loaches are the vacuum cleaners of the fish world. There's a bunch in here and you generally only see them at night, but see if we can get steady enough. There you go. So anyway, start small, work your way up. I started with upstairs tank because I knew what I wanted, and that was the original sump for it, which progressed to a larger sump, which has progressed to this tank, which I was going to replace with a larger tank. But because my anemone is a wild child and needs to be put in jail, I decided to keep that tank and just go ahead and enlarge a tank next to it. Happy with the radions. They do wonders. And somewhere in the meantime, my original first add-on tank got turned back into a refugium tank to enlarge the refugium section. It used to be in my original sump. So, major amount of water comes down, 2,000 gallons per hour, which is probably 1,500 coming down. Hits the protein skimmer first, gets cleaned out. Then it runs downhill into my main sump. And my main sump, it actually comes through the calcium reactor and dumps back in up here to distribute. Meanwhile, I have extra air lines coming in here to aerate this water, almost like a water purification plant, as well as extra air lines coming into the sump. The main sump is the very bottom. So you let gravity be your friend. I actually used one pump to feed this tank, which drains down into this tank, which eventually ends up in the sump. So let gravity be your friend. I do need a little bit larger pump for this system here. It also feeds my refugium, which is full of shrimp and a very large mangrove. And the only remaining Kessel light that I have out of a bunch, and my hand-built one. That's when Kessel lights used to be decent. Clark-Wasser reactor, and my ATO system, or the reef system. So I hope that helped explain how difficult is it, how hard is it worth it? Well, that's up to you. To me, this is entertainment, satisfaction. I watch these guys way more than I watch any TV. I catch a little news out now and then, but this is my entertainment. Believe it or not, I don't clean this tank too much at one time either. Pull too much Kato out, freaks the system out. All of a sudden you have too many phosphates, nitrates, which damage everybody else. So Don't clean too much at one time. But do vacuum the bottom. Do remember it is a cat box for fish. So do them a favor, do yourself a favor. Try to keep it clean, I guess. But don't over clean it. Not too much at one time, again. Those are my best suggestions unless you're a pro and got your system dialed in to where you don't even need one of these. Or you're using bio beads or bio pellets, bio pellet reactor. I'm slowly weaning off of mine, so see if I can let the refugium carry it. Like I say, I know pros that use none of this, and systems even more simple than mine that are really successful at it. So you can start with just a tank, or you can work up to a monstrosity like this. So, up to you. I spend a couple hours a week at least messing with it, and I enjoy it. So, not to mention I sit in the middle of it. And if you're wondering what happened to my air pump, it got moved to an external wall of the house, and I piped it in directly to my distribution manifold, I guess you want to call it. So anyways, if you want to do anything, aerate the hell out of all of it. Biggest tip of the day. And you don't even need fancy stuff like this to pay attention to it. Being in a basement in winter with a sealed house, that's pretty good. Oh, air conditioning unit for the basement, bringing fresh air. And even an occasional cracked window. So, keep a little air fresh air in your house. You can start simple and work up to something bigger. And thank you, Jake. I do appreciate it. Everybody have a great night. I hope this helps some. For some of those that have asked the questions, how much of a pain is it? I don't think it's too much of a pain. And by the way, you don't have to look too far to see aliens. They're right here on Earth with us. You just haven't been paying attention. Everybody have a great night. Take care. Peace out. Thumbs up to you. Thumbs up to me. Subscribe if you haven't. I always have interesting little tidbits to divulge every now and then when I think of it, or I'm asked a question. Alright, y'all, take care.